First of all, this feels like we should be on like Maury doing this. Maury should come out of retirement and be talking about this. By the way, there's your lead for the show on the episode.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Nick DiMartino. That's Johnny Montalbano. This is another edition of Moving the Goalpost. You can follow us across social media at MTGPETB. You can follow the Empty the Bench Network across social media at ETB Network. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick DiMart, Johnny at Montalbano NY. You can watch all Empty the Bench shows on YouTube.com/ETB Network, and you can listen to this show wherever you get your favorite podcasts and your least favorite podcasts. And make sure to like and subscribe. All right. So the NBA playoff picture is officially set, and it's a very, I would say the East and the West look very different right now. I think in a weird way, even though the West is more talented, in some ways, I think it's less interesting than the East. Because I think in the East, there's a lot more questions, if that makes like the teams in the West are better, and it will probably be more entertaining to watch. But teams in the East, it's like we don't really know what phase these teams are in for multiple different reasons. If you look at a team like the Pistons, it's like they were a good team last year, but they were very young and they weren't really experienced enough. And they had the best record in the regular season in the East. And we don't know yet how meaningful that is for the postseason. We're going to find out. It's a similar thing with the Knicks. It's like the Knicks made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, fired Tom Thibodeau. Now we have Mike Brown. And right now they're in a little bit of a slump. We don't really know what we're going to get out of all of it in the playoffs. And it's a similar thing with the Celtics because Jason Tatum is back, coming off an injury, which we don't really know exactly how it's going to affect him. So the way I see it is that the East, there's a lot more question marks in the East. Actually, if you look at the odds on DraftKings, the Pistons are actually the fourth most likely team to win the finals out of the East. Then they're actually behind the Cavs, the Knicks, and the Celtics, which I thought was interesting, given that they were the best team in the regular season.
But you know what though, I agree with that because that's, first off, your start there. I totally agree with. The Eastern Conference is definitely more wide open, and I think the more intriguing of the two conferences when you talk about the playoff picture, because I think in the West right now, you look at it, I think it's the Thunder, the Spurs, and everybody else, and even really you could say the Thunder are even like in a tier, in a class of their own, and I would put the Spurs second, and then I think it's everybody else, especially because of the injuries the Lakers suffered late in the season. I mean, I know we had talked about the Lakers a lot on the show in the prior weeks, and how deep of a run they can make. But it's amazing what a couple of weeks that it feels. I mean, it feels like everything's just fallen out there in LA with the Lakers with injuries. And we'll talk about that in a second. But as far as the East goes, yeah, I would put the Pistons as probably the fourth best team, even though they're number one seed in the East. I think they are the fourth best team in the Eastern Conference because I think right now the Celtics with Jason Tatum, if Tatum is truly back to being himself, I think the Celtics are the most dangerous team. I think the Knicks are more dangerous than the Pistons right now, and I do think the Cavs are, and especially if James Harden and that group of four that they have there plays to their full potential in the playoffs. I mean, Harden is always a wild card in the playoffs. I mean, the history is well known about him, but I think experience and injuries are a big reason why there are question marks regarding the Pistons because Cade Cunningham got hurt. How healthy really is he? And also the experience with them. They are still a very, very young team, the Pistons. And I think right now when you look at them, I think getting out of the first round would be considered a successful year for them.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it really does depend on Cade Cunningham's health. I think that's a big part of it. Look, here's my thing with the Pistons. If you compare if you look at the Vegas odds, by the way, of teams in the East, the Celtics are far and away the most likely team to come out of the East. Like they're their odds on DraftKings are plus 550 as the finals winner. And Oklahoma City, they're barely in the pluses. They're only plus 110. And yesterday they were plus 120. So Oklahoma City is overwhelmingly likely to win it all. But the Celtics, I think, are ahead of every Eastern Conference team, even more than Oklahoma City is over any other Western Conference team. The Celtics are plus 550, the Cavs are plus 1,600, and the Knicks are just behind that at plus 1,800. So the Celtics, if you just look at the odds, are actually further ahead of the East than even Oklahoma City is over the Spurs, which I think is somewhat interesting. And like if you look at the Knicks and the Pistons, and I guess the only thing is Cade Cunningham's health, but also if you look at the Knicks and the Pistons last year, the Knicks won in 6 games. But if it was a very, very close 6 games, if a few things go a little different in that series, the Pistons win that series. So it's not like the Knicks were far and away the better team. And this year, the Pistons have home court in the series, and they were a year older. So that, to me, I think is a little bit of a concern. And is it like I'm in no way convinced that the Knicks this year are a better team than they were last year. In fact, they have pretty much all the same problems, and I have no reason to believe that any of those problems are going to go away. The Knicks lately, at this point in the season, haven't really played all that well. I mean, I don't take any stock in how they lost to the Hornets. They didn't play any of their starters. But, towards the end of the season, they weren't necessarily playing all that. They had a few rough patches towards the end of the season. I mean, they finished the season kind of strong, like wins against they beat the Celtics, but Jaylen Brown also didn't play in that game. And they also beat the Hawks, and the Hawks are okay. But, throughout, towards the end of the season, they really were in a little bit of a slump. And it's not even just about that. It's also just the way the team is structured. I don't really think the Knicks are structured as a championship caliber team. I want the Knicks to go all the way, but I don't think they're good enough. I don't. I mean, having Cat and Brunson as your 2 best players, it's just very unlikely that they can actually win a championship with that type of roster.
I think Cat is the ultimate wild card for the Knicks. If he is himself and he can be the legit, second option for this team, then I think the sky's the limit for the Knicks, because they have showed that they have played up the competition this year in a lot of their games. And I think they do have a favorable opening round matchup against the Hawks. I mean, obviously, if they beat them, then they'll play the winner of the Celtics series, which would be either Celtics 76ers or Celtics Mavericks, which I don't think makes a difference. I think Boston gets by either of those 2 teams. But they have played up to potential, and that's why when you look at them, I think that's why you do give them a chance. But if Cat is not going to be the second option and play like the second best player on this team, then the Knicks are going to be, I think, a one-and-done team this year in the playoffs. That's what I think. I think they will get by in the first round. And they have shown that I think they can at least make it a series, but yeah, it's not really the most favorable spot. I would have been more comfortable with them if they were going up against the Pistons than the Celtics. I think I think the Celtics are that dangerous, and if Jason Tatum returns to the form that he was before the injury, then the Celtics are going to be a very dangerous team, even more so than they are already. I think the reason why a lot of people, like the publics or DraftKings, is showing why the Celtics are a favorite really is because of Tatum. But he hasn't, and you didn't expect him to come back right away and be the Tatum that he was prior to the injury. But his presence out there, I think, has given the team a spark. And if he does, step up a little bit in the playoffs, which I think is a little bit of an ask, but if he does that, then gosh, how do you not think the Celtics come out of the East? Really? I mean, because there's no Pacers this year. Again, the Pistons are a real wild card. I still don't. I mean, I want to see James Harden prove it with the Cavaliers against the Raptors. I want to see him prove it there with the Cavs. I mean, the Cavs do have a pretty loaded group too, but Harden's played great since he's gotten over there. But the history with him in the playoffs is gonna carry on here. if he can exercise those demons and maybe being in a favorable system like the Cavs have shown. I know it's been a short sample size. That'd be the one concern you have with them. But the Cavs could also go deep too. I mean, when I look at that, whether the Pistons play whoever they play or the Cavs and Raptors, I mean, I would take the Cavs in that stretch.
Yeah, well, look, I think James Harden can get past the first round. And James Harden, by the way, one thing about James Harden that I think is a little underrated is that, he's like, what, 38 now, or 37 or 38? And he's still one of the better players in the league. Like, look, I know James Harden has built a reputation for just not getting it done in the postseason. He's 30. Okay, he's 36. He's a little younger than I thought. It feels like he's older because he's been around forever. But, okay, so he's 36. And so he's a little over the hill for a basketball player. And one thing that I think is underrated about him is that he has aged fairly well. Especially for the type of player that he is. He has aged fairly well. I mean, if you compare him to somebody like Westbrook or AD, guys who have just aged like aged like milk throughout their careers, I mean, James Harden has aged fairly well. The biggest issue is that, look, throughout his entire career, if he was the best player on the team or the leader on the team, it's pretty safe to say that they weren't good enough to win a championship. And I think the same thing is true now if you look at the Cavs. I mean, it's not that I think he can't win a championship. I think he can, depending on the circumstances. But it's just that in every circumstance he's been in, he hasn't been good enough to actually get it done and has had some really bad playoff games in big spots.
And he didn't have the kind of roster where they can get by without a bad performance, and now with this group, he could have an off night, and maybe the rest of the roster can carry the team.
Yeah, there's very few superstars who have the luxury of winning championships without being able to do much or without having good series. Like, I think the two that really come to mind are Steph Curry and Jason Tatum. Those are the few. Like, Jason Tatum did not have a good series against who was it? It was the Warriors. It was the Warriors, right? Okay. Yeah. Tatum did not have a good series against Golden State, and they still were able to win the championship. Steph Curry, they were still able to win the finals. Steph Curry did not have a good series against the Cavs the first time they played. In fact, they actually got kind of lucky that the Cavs had some injury troubles. Steph is often in a position where he doesn't have to do a whole lot sometimes, and his team can still play fairly well. James Harden on this team, I don't really think is in that position right now. I don't think that James Harden can have a classic James Harden game in a game 7 and still be able to win. Like, I think that they're probably a little too reliant on him at this point.
That's fair. Yeah. I think what you're saying is totally understandable, but I mean, we'll find out now, now he's doing this. Like I said, now with the Cavs team, I mean, again, I think the one concern that I would have with the Cavs side with them is, did they have enough time to gel? It looks like in the short term they have, but I just don't know if they can. Would they be able to? I think they can. They showed in the limited time that they can. So we'll see if they can. And I think against the Raptors, I think they can get past the Raptors, and I think they actually could give the Pistons a real challenge if it ends up being that in the second round. Well, I still worry about the Pistons in terms of Cunningham, in terms of how healthy he is, and that experience factor. I mean, there is going to be some pressure of them being the number one seed. That you're the number one seed, you have to go far. I mean, it's very rare that number one seeds don't make huge runs in the NBA playoffs, and they're number one seeds for a reason. But we really have not seen a number one seed like this Pistons team in quite some time.
Yeah, also the thing with Cade Cunningham is that he has such an unusual injury that it's a little hard to gauge. It was his issue was a collapsed lung.
Yeah, not something you hear about a lot in terms of basketball.
Right. You don't hear about that a lot. And also, like, what even does that mean exactly, a collapsed lung? Like, and how would that affect him? Like, if he had, like, say, a knee injury or something like that, it's like, well, I have a pretty good idea of how that's going to affect him. But, like, a collapsed young lung, that feels like a total wild card. And also, you mentioned the experience factor, which I think is a big thing. I mean, the way I see it is that I think that for younger teams, for every year that they get older, it makes a really significant difference in terms of how good they can be in the playoffs. It certainly made a huge difference in terms of how good they were in the regular season. And, I'm hearing that a lot about how, maybe the Pistons are just more built for the regular season, and that can be true. I mean, we've seen that before. We've seen the 2015 Hawks, who had the best record in the regular season, didn't do anything in the playoffs. We've seen that before. But also, we have to wait for the playoffs to actually happen before we declare that to be true. Because I think there's more evidence that the Cavs are built for the regular season and not the playoffs, uh, given their history and James Harden's history, than with the Pistons. With the Pistons, we just don't know. With the Cavs, I think it's actually fairly safe to say that, actually.
That would be an awesome series. It ends up being those two in the second round for sure.
And by the way, I think there's more evidence that I think there's more evidence that the Knicks are built for the regular season than the playoffs. I mean, if the playoffs if Cat and Brunson have some of the games that they were having in the playoffs last year, I mean, the Knicks really could be in trouble. I don't think I mean, look, they should get past the Hawks. If they don't get past the Hawks, there's going to be a lot of conversations and changes being made. That would be an issue, but I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, the weird thing about the Hawks is that the Hawks this season, they were like in tank mode for a little bit. Like, they traded like they traded Trae Young. They traded two of their best players early in the middle of the season. And now somehow they ended up making the playoffs without even needing to go play a play-in game. It's like they were like rebuilding in the middle of the season and they still were able to make the playoffs, which I think is a little unusual. I don't think the Knicks should have trouble with them, but look, Cat and Brunson are both very good players. The problem with them is that both of them, your two best players, are both not good on defense and often get into just stupid foul trouble in these playoff games, which has been an issue a lot. Brunson's had some great games in the playoffs with the Knicks, but whenever that happens, he's doing it all by himself. Like, he's taken like 40 shots. Sure, he's putting up amazing numbers, but nobody else on the team is really doing anything. And he's really just him and Cat can both be liabilities on defense. And there were some games where Cat was like last year in the playoffs where he was so cold inexplicably to the point where Thibodeau had to take him out or had to bench him. Which, by the way, people forget about it, but it worked. And, so the Knicks, to me, I would say, are a little bit of a chaotic team and a little bit of a wild card. Like overall, if you look at their performance in the playoffs last year, I think it was great that they beat the Celtics, but there was a whole lot of, I don't know, what felt like growing pains, for lack of a better term. It wasn't fun as a Knicks fan watching them play the Pistons.
No,
it was more stressful than it was fun, and we were relieved that they got out of it. It was great that they beat the Celtics, but the Celtics, I think, beat themselves a little bit. Like, they just shot terribly in some of these games. They beat themselves in a lot of ways. Not to take anything away from the Knicks, but they beat themselves. And like, that's really just like, I just don't really have super high expectations for the Knicks this year.
Well, I think the draw is why. Again, if they go up against, they're gonna, in all likelihood, if they get out of the series, they're gonna play the Celtics. And I think, I mean, but the thing is, though, why you would still give them a shot is because they have played up the competition this year. I mean, they showed that in the regular season against the top teams. They actually played very, very well. Of course, then the other side of that is playing the Hawks, who they remember now the Hawks started 20-25 this year and then had a 25-10 stretch after that. And like you said, traded away a couple of their guys. Now, the one thing the Hawks do have is a couple of veteran playoff players on that team, like CJ McCollum and Jonathan Kuminga. Remember, Jonathan Kuminga was on the Warriors, but I mean the guy the Knicks need to shut down is Jalen Johnson. If Jalen Johnson runs over this team, then that is really, really concerning. But I think that's the guy the Knicks need to focus on and take him out of the way. And I think they should be fine. I think the thing is, if the Knicks lose this series, I think it would be because one of their key players probably suffered a very significant injury and was ineffective. They should still be able to. They're a deeper team. They're a more talented team than the Hawks. I know the Hawks are scrappy, and they're like you said, it seemed like they were going for tanking. Now they've gotten this far. They're going to be very, very loose.
It was so clearly. It's not. I'm not saying they were tanking, but they were rebuilding. It would be like if an NFL team traded their quarterback in the middle of the season. It's like no team that isn't rebuilding is doing that, and somehow they were still able to make the playoffs.
Well, coaching has something to do with that too.
Yeah, for sure.
The Hawks do have one of the more experienced guys there in terms of the coaching department too. So we'll see. I think the Knicks do get past the Hawks in 5. I think the Hawks will get a game, but I think the Knicks are superiorly the better team. The best player in the series is on the Knicks, so I think they will take care of business, and we'll see where it transpires going into the second round. But like you said, if they don't get past the Hawks, then this is the major disappointment for them. It's one thing if you lose. It's one thing if you lose in the second round and I know a lot of people are going to say, well, the Knicks need to make the conference finals again. I'm not ready to go there just yet, but I will say this: if they don't get past the Hawks, this is a major failure this year.
Barring some type of catastrophic injury, God forbid, it's an absolute failure. It's a total failure. It would almost be like if they lost to the Pistons last year.
I agree. That's a great point. That's a great way to look at it. I think real quick when you're talking, because like you said, I think the East is much more of a question mark, and I think the better of the two conferences to keep an eye on. I think as far as the West goes, like I said, I think it's the Thunder 1, Spurs 1A, and then there's everybody else. I can't even put the Lakers in right now because of the injuries they suffered at the end of the year. I think the Rockets are actually going to get past them. Lakers might win a game, but those injuries are so significant to them that I just don't see how they're going to be able to get far. LeBron's going to have to turn back the clock because now without Luka and Barnes, that team is a depleted team, and that's the last thing you want going into a playoff series. You want about a team that limped down the stretch. That now in the NBA it's different, but I feel like they don't. Even in the NBA now, you're starting to see sometimes momentum does carry into the playoffs. I think home court means more than anything when it comes to the playoffs in terms of the NBA. It
matters a lot for sure.
I think more than any of the other three major sports, but it's just hard to if Luka and Barnes are on that team. The Lakers right now probably the second or third best team out west. Now I just think they're just another team in the playoffs because of
the Lakers before Luka got injured. Luka was having a historic month of March. They were maybe the hottest team in the league before Luka got injured, and now their odds have if you look at the odds, they increased tenfold over the last week or so. I think they went a little, but I did notice that the odds for them to win the finals. Really, I think about a week ago, they were what were they? They were plus 30. Yeah, they were plus 3,000 last week. I think I could be wrong, but I think they were plus 3,000. Now, if you look at the odds, they are plus 25,000, and they went down. They went down a little. But last week at a certain point, they were up I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago, it was plus 3,000. Last week, it was after the injury, they were plus 30,000, and it went down a little. Now it's plus 25,000. They're actually behind the Hornets, the Sixers, and the Hawks in terms of the finals. It's bad when you're behind the Sixers.
Yeah, I was going to say that's crazy. A team that's in the play-in tournament and the play-in game. That's wild. But it makes sense though, because how do you replace that with production? It's going to take almost 4 to 5 players to do that with the Lakers, and I just don't think they have the kind of players on that team that can do that.
Look, the thing with LeBron is that Look, LeBron is unquestionably the greatest 41-year-old basketball player ever, unquestionably. But that's a pretty big asterisk, which is the key word there is 41 years old. His skill set is still very limited because he's 41 years old. Like, he can't play defense like he used to. LeBron was a very, very good defender. It was one of the best defenders in the league when he was in his prime. But 41-year-olds, no 41-year-old could ever play defense at a high level in the NBA. He is not a good defensive player. And that was always a little bit of an issue with, like, the biggest issue with the Lakers, even with Luka and Reeves, was that they weren't a well-balanced team. They were very much like, they looked like a Mike D'Antoni team. Like, all offense, no defense. Luka is also not a good defensive player, even though, like, even at his young age, he's not a good defensive player. And LeBron at this point is, if anything, a liability on defense. Now you don't even have the scoring aspect of it. You don't have Reeves, and you don't have Luka. It's like, well, what do the Lakers have? I mean, the only thing I can think of is maybe Luka can come back from his surgery that he's getting in Europe. And, but even if he does somehow come back for the playoffs, first of all, they're going to have to win a few games without him because he's not coming back for the first game against the Rockets. And also, even if he does, is he going to be himself? Is he going to go back to what he was before he got hurt? I mean, I think the likelihood of that is very low.
Now, I know that he had a hamstring and, Durant had a calf. But, when Durant had his calf, before he hurt his Achilles, he was dealing with a calf issue, and he tried to play through that, and he only made it worse. I mean, if you're talking about Luka, you're talking about if he comes back from that and makes it worse, you're talking about him being affected for next year. LeBron, remember when Luka was going through his historic stretch, LeBron was basically taking a different role with the team, and then he was taking a back seat to him, playing more of a secondary role, which was really working out well for the team. Now he's got to be the guy again. Like you said, at 41 years old, I just don't think it's real. It's just not realistic. And it's really a shame because, I mean, that team really could have made a second round run, could have even made a conference finals run if everything had worked out. Now it's just hard to see them, forget just winning a round. I don't even know if they would even win a game with the way this team's with how it's structured. They might win a game, but it's hard to see them going. I think it's very hard to see them making it a series. I mean, LeBron, you can say that, but LeBron, like you said, is 41 years old. I mean, he was playing as a second role when Luka had his historic stretch. I just don't see how, and they don't have the guys, I think, on that team that can pick up like 3/4 of the slack of what Luka was doing.
I mean, like I said before, even when they were playing well, I'd still have a lot of question marks because they're not really built like a playoff team very much. Like, if you look at the way the Lakers are built, how many championship winning teams were built that way? Like, the closest I could think of would be the Golden State Warriors, but even that feels silly just comparing those two teams because Klay Thompson was they still had some very good defensive players on the Warriors. Like, we think of them as the Splash Brothers; they shot threes, but they were a well-balanced team. Draymond Green was a fantastic defensive player. And Klay Thompson was also a very good defensive player. Steph Curry wasn't great on defense, but he did okay. He did what he needed to do. He was satisfactory, I would say. And they had Andrew Bogut on that team, too. They had a whole lot of pieces on that Warriors team. I don't think that's true with this Lakers team. Like, the Warriors weren't just a run and gun, like beat opponents 150 to 140 like the Lakers are. Like, that's the type of team that they are. And, you don't normally see teams, just like in football, you don't normally see teams that are so heavy on one side of the ball win championships. You kind of have to have a little bit of both. Now, from the way the Lakers were playing at that level in March, maybe they could have because they were just that good. Like, maybe they could have overcome some of that. But now you don't have that. And now when you talk about the Rockets, look, they have their question marks too, because if the Lakers had Luka and Reeves, I would be all in on the Lakers. Like, if these injuries didn't happen from the way they were playing out of this world. The Rockets, there's a lot of question marks about them too. Durant is past his prime. Durant, ever since leaving the Warriors, has developed a reputation like a James Harden, which is like not getting it done in the playoffs. And not to mention the rest of the team outside of Durant, the starting lineup is very young. They're inexperienced. You want to talk about an inexperienced Pistons team, you can say the same thing about an inexperienced Rockets team for the most part. So that also, I think, is an interesting question. and it is questionable for the Rockets. And also, like, just from a fan standpoint, as a basketball fan, like, I think it's kind of a shame because the Lakers, I thought, were the most interesting story, if not for the injuries. It's like, not only are they a great story because we're seeing something we've never seen before, which is a 41-year-old LeBron taking on a whole new different role, basically making history in a lot of ways. And also, like, just the way the Lakers played, they were the most entertaining team to watch. I mean, a team with Luka, LeBron, Reeves, teams that, like a team like the Lakers, which really just scores a ton of points and doesn't play much defense. Every game they play is a shootout. I think it would have made for some really, just as a viewer, some really great games.
I agree. I mean, it would have been appointment TV for sure. Now, the way it looks right now, I mean, it's gonna be a hard watch. And really, I mean, I think the Lakers would have been the only team in that could have given a run to either the Spurs or the Thunder. Now, I think it's just those two teams, and then there's everybody else.
I mean, if you look at
injuries would be the only reason why you would give any of the other teams a chance. But I mean, the way the Thunder and the way the Spurs are playing, the way that the way the Spurs are, how do you see it being anybody else but those two teams? I mean, for the way what he's doing is just it's incredible. And SGA there with the Thunder. I mean, again, two incredibly talented players that are doing otherworldly things.
Yeah, and also you want to talk about like experience. I mean, the Spurs, that's a question mark too. I mean, that's also an experience question. I mean, your two best players are what, 22 years old?
I agree, but I think what Wemby's doing is, I mean, I don't think the playoffs are pressure for Wembanyama. I mean, he came into the league with such high expectations and such high pressure. I mean, the way they were talking about him when he got, you remember this, I don't even be obvious in saying this. I mean, when he got drafted a couple of years ago, I mean, he was the most highly touted prospect in the NBA since LeBron.
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing that's really stopped him was the blood clot that he had last year. I mean, that was a very freaky thing, but I mean, the guy is unbelievable what he's doing.
Yeah,
so I really don't think the playoffs are going to be a thing for him. I think there's just going to be another game. I really do believe that.
Yeah, I think that could certainly be the case, but for Dylan Harper, I think it's a question.
Sure. No, I mean, I'm not saying it's just Wembanyama, but I mean, he's so talented and stuff that, I mean, I think he can offset a lot of it. We'll see.
It's also strange seeing a player of the, like, I feel like, are we in like the return of the big man era? The traditional center in basketball in some ways. I mean, like, if you look at some of the best play, like now we see like Chet Holmgren and Wemby, and, you know, I mean, Chet Holmgren's not the player that Wemby is, but it's like, you know, these are the types of players, like the tall, lanky center. I mean, they're slightly more skilled overall than your traditional center, but like they can shoot from the outside a little better. But I feel like it's almost like a return of that type of player, because I didn't think we'd see that traditional center again.
I think that's the only position right now that of the five positions in basketball that you could make the case for. But even still, like you had just said, these centers are shooting. Their range is so much greater than it was even like back in the 90s and 2000s. I mean, that's the thing. So the center position has been elevated to another level, but in terms of it being an actual position, yes, I think that is the one position that you can say is set in stone the most of the five in basketball right now.
So moving on, can we talk about this story that the Kings were investigated for tanking, which basically they were investigated for tanking in a game that they won. Like, they beat the Warriors in a game they weren't. I'm sure that the Warriors were favored in that game, and they were and they ended up winning the game, and they were investigated for tanking in a game that they won, which makes absolutely no sense at all. If the team was tanking, chances are they're not winning. They're not beating a team that is better than them. like I don't understand that. That's what's so strange about it. And also, investigated for tanking is not against the rules. Teams are doing it all the time. It's like the most open secret in the NBA.
Well, there's two words in sports, and the NBA's got this more than anybody else when it comes, and the second word is not in my mind right now, but you'll get it. It's what's the word that when you have a player, you're talking to a player that's on another team?
Tampering.
Yeah, okay. So the two T's, tampering and tanking. The NBA, it's talked about here more than any other sport. And I feel like sometimes the NBA is trying to go leaps and bounds, trying to find a case of tanking or tampering. Like they did it with my Knicks when we got for Jalen Brunson. They said that was tampering when everybody else does similar things. It's the same thing here. It's like they're trying. It's like when you're investigating something, you're trying to find a crime. That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like the NBA, and this is why one of the problems the league is had is this. I don't know, because you're really trying to find what exactly is tanking. You're trying to find evidence, and I feel like that's what they've been trying to do here.
Yeah, and also, you know what? I don't even know if it's so much that they're trying to find evidence, because I feel like if they did try to find evidence, they would have done it. I think it's more accurate that, look, I think Adam Silver is, like, people say he's a players commissioner, and to some extent, I think that's true. But I also think he's a little bit of like a public commissioner or a fans commissioner, for lack of a better term, because I think he's listening to the fans too much. Like, if you look at like an owner like Roger Goodell, I feel like he doesn't care that much about public backlash. He gets booed at the draft every year, whatever. He doesn't care. If you look at somebody like Adam Silver, I feel like he likes to take the path of least resistance a lot. And because people on social media were saying things about how, oh, they're tanking, he wanted to launch an investigation into it. And that's really all I think it was, because I feel like what exactly are you, like, it's not illegal. Is it against the rules to tank? We see teams do it all the time in basketball. And also, I just think that it's super weird to me that sports fans on social media care so much about tanking in the NBA when it's teams that maybe the NBA perhaps should care about it, but it's weird to me that fans care about it, because, like, these aren't teams that you're watching. You're not turning on a game on TNT and seeing, like, the Kings play the Wizards or something like that. You're not seeing that in nationally televised games. And the fan bases of these teams root for the tanking. So it's like, if the fan bases want the tanking and it benefits the franchise, which it objectively does, I'm not saying tanking always works, but it is objectively smarter to do for the future of the franchise. And the people who do care about it don't watch these teams, don't follow these teams overwhelmingly. It's like, it's super strange to me that people care so much about tanking. It's like, look, a lot of my friends are Brooklyn Net fans, and they root for them to lose every single game. I swear to God, they flat out say, terrible win today for the Nets. Like, they would say that, or, great loss. Like, that's literally, that is what they say. If you talk to the fan bases of these losing teams, they all say that. So it's like, why would I be mad about, say, the Brooklyn Nets or the Washington Wizards tanking when I have not watched a game all year? And outside of, like, Trae Young, I can hardly name anybody on either one of those rosters. So it's super, like, I don't know. I don't care that much about tanking. That's, like, I think if anything, tanking is a symptom of a bigger issue, but the tanking in and of itself, I don't care about very much.
And you know why I have no issue with if they want to do it in basketball? Because it doesn't guarantee you anything. That's why you have a lottery, honestly. And people have complained about the lottery. That is why lottery is the best thing, because I think it counteracts the tanking. Because if let's say you are doing it, it doesn't guarantee you're going to get the number one overall pick. It just increases the odds that you're going to get the number one overall pick, but it doesn't mean you're going to. And that's why, I think in another sport, like if you're talking about the NFL, which people say they tank too. First off, I don't think they tank in the NFL. You're just not talented.
Nobody ever tanks in the NFL.
Well, look, you're not talented. That you're just not talented. That's really what it is.
I don't think any team tanks in the NFL. In fact, a lot of times the opposite happens. Jet and Giant fans think it only happens to them, but actually teams do that all the time. If you look at the Browns this year, they were one of the worst teams. A lot of times, what did the Browns do at the end of last season? They won So in the end, in the last 2 weeks, yeah, the Browns won their last two games of the season last year. They won a total of 5 games, and two of them were at the end of the year last year against the
Giants,
Steelers
yeah.
and the Bengals.
Giants did too. They beat the Cowboys and the Raiders last
Yeah,
year.
and the Jets beat the Jaguars that one year where they would have been able to draft Trevor Lawrence instead of Zach Wilson. So people, like, for some reason, tanking is an issue in the NBA. It's not really a thing in the NFL. And I think it's because coaches, like, there's so many individuals that have so much self-interest that they're all trying to keep their jobs. And
Yeah,
also, it doesn't work as well in the NFL. Whereas I think part of the reason that there's so much tanking in the NBA this year is because this year's draft class is so strong.
it's
If you look at the top 4 picks, any one of those top 4 picks could be franchise-changing draft picks.
absolutely, yeah.
And
But
that's not a symptom of something bad. That's a symptom of something good, which is that there's so many compelling picks this year. So I don't even really like some of the reasons for why teams tank is actually a symptom of something good rather than something bad in some ways.
yeah, and in basketball, when it doesn't guarantee you anything, then fine, let them do it. It just gives them
Yeah.
a better shot. It just gives them a better chance, And like
Yeah.
in the football, they don't tank, and it also is not guaranteed that the top pick's going to be anybody good. I mean, it's going to work out in the NFL. We've seen that a million times too. So I mean, look, if they want to, I think the problem is the league is looking at it more from like a professional standpoint, saying that you have fans that spend their hard-earned money watching a game and seeing a team that maybe like gives it up at the end. But I'm like, if that's what they want to do, I mean,
Well, the thing is, though, I think that argument makes more sense for something like load management, which I think load management is a more interesting and important conversation than tanking because it's like, okay, if you're spending money, if you're a Kings fan or a Wizards fan or a Nets fan, like I said, these fan bases overwhelmingly support the tanking. So, like, I don't really think your average fan is buying tickets to a Kings game and expecting a good product because they're not giving you a good product anyway. So I don't really think that's really the issue. I think that's an issue with, say, load management, especially when it comes to like benching stars and you're putting these games on national television. That I think is a different conversation because that is the top, like that is the cream of the crop of the NBA. That's what they can actually sell.
absolutely.
Well, that's more interesting to me. But I don't really think any Brooklyn Net fan is mad about them tanking, even if they buy tickets to go to the game. Like if you're buying tickets to go to a Net game, you have too much money and time on your hands. Like that to me is ridiculous.
Yeah. But yeah, I think they're being very picky when it comes to this. Again, they try and find tanking, they try and find tampering. I think and you have made a great point. It was something I was going to bring up too. Load management is the biggest problem in the league. It's not tanking or tampering because tanking is not it doesn't guarantee you in the NBA. It doesn't guarantee you anything really.
Right. All right. So can we talk about this quickly? The Bucks parted ways with Doc Rivers.
I'm not surprised at all, really.
Me neither.
The Bucks. Is there a team that's been talked about a lot in terms of you want to talk about being a mess? The Bucks have been like that because they've had this huge cloud around them all season regarding Giannis.
Yeah.
And is he going to stay with the team long term? Are they going to trade him during the season? Obviously, a lot of talk with him maybe going to the Knicks. Again, sometimes with the Knicks, the best moves are the best deals and the best decisions are the ones you don't make. I think not trading for Giannis during the season was smart because I would not be giving up valuable role players, which they would ask for players and picks. The Knicks have the picks, but they also be asking for the players, and it's a conversation that we've had with them for a long, long time. I think the Bucks are going down a very, very interesting road here because if they want to keep Giannis long term, I wonder how much of a role he's going to have and who they're going to pick out here. Because if they don't, and this just shows you how much power the players have in the NBA. Because if they don't find a Giannis guy to coach this team next year, then it definitely sounds like he's going to be gone. And Giannis voiced his frustration, but he's still saying the right things to how he wants to stay with the Bucks. But you could tell like he's not happy.
He could have requested a trade earlier this season. You would think that he would have wanted out. And I think a lot of players probably would have. I think Giannis is particularly loyal. I think European players tend to be a bit more like European players tend to be more loyal to their teams than American players. That just seems to be true.
Yeah, don't tell me about Porzingis. Don't tell me about Porzingis.
Yeah, well,
that was his brother that and that's the problem. You have family members that get in the way too. I mean,
he's the only one.
The biggest problem. That's the biggest problem with the European players is when they have family members that get involved in it. Then it's a big
but like with European players are more likely nowadays. It seems like to stay on one team, or at least the star players are. Whereas NBA players are more likely to want to join up with all their American players. I mean, are more likely to want to join up with all their friends. That's certainly what it seems like. I think it's about time because Doc Rivers, I would say is the most overrated coach in the NBA, but people are all kind of realizing it, so he's not really overrated anymore. He's fairly rated now, and this team was a total disaster this year. And by the way, the Eastern Conference, all you needed to do to make the playoffs this year in the Eastern Conference was be a little bit above average. That's really all you needed, and the Bucks couldn't even reach that with a top 5 player. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen that before.
Well, that's been a lot in the Eastern Conference a lot of the time. You only need to be you can be 5-10 games under 500. Remember back in the day, you used to be 5 or 10 games under 500, you get into the playoffs. I mean, you wouldn't go far, but you still get in.
In the East this year, all you needed to do was be above 500 to make the playoffs. That's all you needed.
Yeah, and it's like you said, Giannis, who I'd say top 5, top 10 player in the league right now. But I'm very curious to see how much of a role he's going to have in terms of who the Bucks pick out as the new coach. And he's gone through a lot of coaches in his time there. So if he's going to be there long term, I have a feeling that they may go with more of a younger guy there in Milwaukee, and we'll see. But and as far as Doc Rivers' future goes, I don't know really what kind of future he has. I mean, does he go to coach a younger team? I don't see that. Does an experienced team that's close to making the playoffs want to take a shot with him? I mean, his resume. I mean, he's a solid coach, but I mean, obviously he's had his flaws too. I mean, obviously the biggest one was with the Sixers when they were up 3-1 in the playoffs and they lost. But we'll find out. I mean, he will not be part of the ESPN coverage in the playoffs. That's already been out there. I mean, there was talk about that possibly, especially since Michael Malone went to became the new coach at UNC. But we'll see where Doc's future goes because I don't know what there really is for him unless he maybe becomes an assistant or goes the collegiate road, which I don't think he's going to do.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, if Doc Rivers is having trouble handling the NBA, he's going to have a lot of trouble as a college coach. Like all the issues that he has in the NBA, he'd probably have all those same issues, but except worse in college.
Yeah,
I don't see that happening.
I agree. Yep.
All right, so can we talk about Diana Russini for a little bit? Diana Russini and Mike Vrabel are in a little bit of hot water. They were spotted at they were spotted at what do they call it?
This story is so strange. Now, full disclosure, this happened while I was away at work last week on location of work, but I was out of town last week for work, and then this stuff came up. I really didn't have a chance to really see it, but like, what is the big deal with this? That's really what I want to know.
So they were at.
So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this story on the spot here in terms of reacting to it.
Well, okay. So they were spotted at this Sedona hotel in Arizona. This hotel in Sedona, Arizona. And they were lounging by. I don't know if you saw the pictures.
That's the one thing I did see was the picture.
The pictures are, I mean, sure.
I saw it from page 6. They're the ones that had this, so let's give the proper credit there.
Well, this was at this was at a hotel which is typically used for say romantic getaways. It was a luxurious adults-only hotel. It's known for being a romantic scenic getaway, where they were both spotted. And one of the pictures, I think, is a little strange, for sure. I'm not saying I know what happened. I don't. But I do think that's certainly a little suspicious to see an NFL reporter with a head coach at what is a romantic is in what is typically thought of as like a romantic getaway. That to me is a little weird. It didn't look like it was a business trip with a bunch of NFL people and they happened to bump into each other. That I thought seemed a little strange because what is like the full context of all of this? I'm not saying I know everything, but the way I see it is I'm not just going to look at this and just dismiss it as nothing. Like, I don't think that's nothing. I think that certainly looks like a lot. That could be something to me.
So here's where things get interesting in my opinion. I'm reading this off of TMZ. So Vrabel's been married, if I'm reading this correctly. Vrabel's been married since 1999, and him and his wife Jen have 2 kids together. Wow. And Diana Russini tied the knot with Shake Shack executive Kevin Goldschmidt in 2020, and they also have 2 young children. See, you know what the problem is? This is society right now where you have cameras everywhere. You're in the spotlight everywhere, and like you can't go on a trip, and we don't know. Like, I mean, look, I mean, there's definitely they're showing them being there together, but is there anything like, okay, so I'm seeing them like they're holding hands, they're lounging by a pool, they're hugging on a rooftop.
I think the holding hands picture is a little suspicious, and also at this ghetto, at what is typically at a hotel, which is typically used as a romantic getaway. I mean, that is a little suspicious to me. I mean, like, it's a little hard for me to look at that and be like, oh yeah, there's nothing weird about that. I mean, and if you don't think there's anything weird about it, well, would you be okay with your wife or your girlfriend or husband or boyfriend? Would you, and these pictures came out, would you look at it and think, oh, there's nothing going on? Like, I don't think you would.
So the funny thing is, and you know, with my luck, when I'm on these shows, that by the time this show premieres, there will probably be a decision regarding Diana Rossini's future at the Athletic or with this. So full disclosure on that, especially since I'm on this week. Yeah, people are going to say, Johnny, you should go on another work trip. There's more of those coming, so you'll get your wish. But so what was I going to say? First of all, this feels like we should be on like Maury doing this. Maury should be out of retirement and be talking about this. By the way, there's your lead for the show on the episode.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely. So I'm looking at these photos right now on TMZ and page 6. Definitely, I mean, see, the problem is they're both married. So that's so really in their personal lives, that's really more of an issue than talking about like their professional lives. Now, the Athletic, I know, is very, you know, they hold their people to high standards, and that's really what it is. So, I mean, until we find out more about this, like, I think really we should be hearing, and I don't know if we're going to hear, but we should be hearing from like Vrabel's wife or Russini's husband about all of this. And I'm sure they've now seen this stuff out too. So maybe this is more of a personal thing. Is it something that like Russini should be getting in trouble for, possibly losing her job? That I don't know. Well, I don't know. I don't know if we know enough about this as we're doing this on Monday afternoon. I don't know if there's enough out there as of right now looking at this that she should be.
I think that the professional question from our point of view and from the Athletics point of view is more important than the personal question. I think it was Colin Cowherd who said this, or somebody else said that. I think it was him, but it was like in Mike Vrabel's case, it's moral, and in Diana Rossini's case, it's moral and it's ethical.
That's fair.
That's like the moral side of it from the employer's point of view and from the public's point of view doesn't really matter that much compared to the ethical side of it from the professional standpoint, which is like if it's true that Mike Vrabel and Diana Russini are both cheating on their spouses, I mean, that's a really bad thing, but it's a family matter. It's not an issue with their employer. But only in Diana Russini's case is it really an ethical issue. And if it's true that they're having some type of affair, and I'm not accusing anybody of anything, I'm just saying if that is true, then that's also a huge ethical issue for Diana Russini because she's a reporter and she's reporting on this head coach. I mean, that is a huge ethical issue as a journalist.
That's fair, and I would totally agree with you on that. Yes, I think that's where it does, especially if we find out more about this. I mean,
like that's what's just so strange about it. Which now maybe if something else comes out that like kind of shows that okay, maybe this is not what you thought, that this is kind of this is misleading. Okay, maybe then I'll say that. But so far, like I just it's hard for me to look at this and be like, oh well, this is just nothing. Like that to me is so silly. And the thing is like that's why like people talk more about the Diana Russini side of it than Mike Vrabel's side, because on Diana Russini's side, I think she has a greater responsibility from an ethical standpoint, from a professional standpoint, than Vrabel does as a head coach, if that makes sense. It's it's kind of like if an employer offers sexual favors for, say, promotions or things like that. Like that's a huge ethical issue.
Oh, yeah.
The onus is far more on the employer than the employee that accepts it.
I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that, and that's where I was going at. Sometimes it would take me like 10 minutes to get there, but that's where I was going to go at with that.
Right.
I mean, but yeah, and we'll see if there's more that comes out, and we'll see what happens. I mean, is it a fireable offense? Is it something where she'll be like suspended for a while? I mean, that ultimately is up to, if we find out more information, it's ultimately up to the Athletic what they want to do on that.
Ultimately, I think it's if that turns out to be true, I think it's a fireable offense for Diana Russini, but I really hope that they actually prove it and it's not just from internet like speculation. I really hope they actually can prove it, but I don't think it's a fireable offense for Mike Vrabel, really. I mean, not for how good he's been.
No, I agree with you. I agree, and I was going to say that. I mean, this definitely is more on Russini than it is on Vrabel, for sure. But this is and you know what I mean. If this was TMZ, this would be one thing. But Page 6 also, which sometimes like to get these things too, that's sometimes you don't consider the source, and that also then leads into a whole nother issue of seeing stuff at seeing pics at random, like they're posting it at the most random times. So seems like we need to put these two. Seems like we need to put these two to like a lie detector test or something. And
if lie detectors
Rory show.
By the way, like a sexy decoy or something. You know who I can't stand? Like I lost so much respect for. I mean, I didn't have much left, but for Dan Le Batard with this whole thing, because he was like, I'm not like he wouldn't talk about it because Diana Russini is a friend. Which, by the way, my beef is not that he wouldn't throw a friend under the bus. I'm the same way. I would never throw a friend under the bus. My issue with this whole thing is that he is the biggest holier than thou guy when it comes to anything involving sports media. Like he's mad at debate culture in sports on TV, and it's like, I don't know, man, who cares?
He was a big part of it too.
Right. It's like, I don't know, who cares? Whatever. They debate about topics like it's interesting for the viewer, whatever. But when it comes to like a reporter with these very questionable photos at a resort known for romantic getaways with a head coach that she covers, it's like, you're just not going to talk about it. Like my issue is that you wouldn't be granting this level, this type of leeway to almost anybody else. But, Diana Russini is just a friend of the Le Batard show. So because she's in his inner circle, in a sense, he's just going to not talk about it.
Well, see, and that's wrong, because you know what you can do? You can talk about it and just put a full disclosure out there about the fact that she's your friend. I mean, look,
also,
how many times, I mean, it's not even the same thing, but like, how many times do we put out full disclosures when we do sports picks on shows? I mean, not to compare this to a sports pick thing, but I'm talking about just when we have a little bit of biases towards certain things, we do put out a full disclosure about that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, that's really my issue, which is that like, oh, he's like, so like he appoints himself as like the moral like authority of sports media, of the profession. And he bashes everybody. He hates everybody. And he hates like sports media members that are really good at what they do. I mean, look, say what you want about Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless. They're phenomenal at what they do. It's just objectively true. Craig Carton is phenomenal at what he does. All of them are. And it's like, it really, I don't know. The way I see it, I don't know how you see it. The way I see it is that it puts like a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth when you're constantly hating. It's like when you see certain comedians that all they ever do is bash other comedians other than themselves. Like Anthony Jeselnik, like that's what Dan Le Batard is. Like
unfortunately, we see this in all walks of life and in all news cycles or whatnot. We see this, and I think for him to not do that, it's irresponsible on his part. Really.
That's what I just can't stand about.
It's part of the honestly, and it's part of the reason why like I've stopped like watching news or stopped listening to certain people when it comes to sports or whatnot, because they just the irresponsibility or stuff like that is exactly why I stopped doing it. So
like I just don't. It always puts a bad taste in my mouth when people you only have negative things to say about everybody. Like that just really, except for the people in your clique. Like that to me, I just can't stand.
Well, it's like now with social media, like there are certain accounts that will only post like one person's comments or comments that are pretty similar day in and day out, and it's like it's tweet bait. That's what they're trying to do.
Yeah,
I mean that's really what it is. I mean, at least when we put out clips about our shows, it's not, we're not doing it for tweet bait. We're doing it because we have very good thoughts about certain topics like this.
I'd like to believe good thoughts. Some bad.
Nick D, you've done 109. We've done 109 episodes, 110 episodes of this show. I think something had to be good to make it this far.
Yeah, that's true. We're still going. Or I'm just super resilient. Either of those
things. Too. Yes, either or. Yeah.
All right. So can we talk about this quickly? The Mets and Yankees are both have terrible losing streaks. They forgot how to play baseball in New York. That's the biggest problem right now. Look, the only good thing about this is that the Yankees are also losing. So that's the only thing I like about New York baseball right now.
There is nothing better than early season overreactions, and this is exactly what it is. Yankees always seem, there are several years, even during the good old days when they made deep runs in the playoffs, that they would have such slow starts to the year. Mets had a stretch last year where they were horrible, picked it up late. I mean, everybody, it's a 162 game season. They're both going to have these stretches. We could easily come on in 2 weeks and they both could win 9 out of 10, and you'd even forget this is even happening. It is such a long year. Now, that all being said, though, I think there's something on the Mets side that is a little bit more alarming to me, and it's the fact that they don't have a guy like Brandon Nimmo and Pete Alonso on their team. Nimmo's an on-base percentage guy. Pete Alonso played every single game that he was with the team and provided power and stuff. They don't have those kind of guys on the team. I mean, that's not an overreaction. That we knew when they got rid of them both, that was bad. As far as the Yankees go, look, Yanks, this is the problem they always have had. They're too power heavy. They're too right-handed hitting heavy. This has always been a thing for them, and until they change their philosophy, I mean, they're gonna. This is the kind of roster they have. They're gonna have stretches where they're gonna struggle, and then they're gonna stretches where they all get hot.
Well, what I'll say about Alonso is that Alonso is not playing very well right now. He's been struggling lately with Baltimore. If he was on the Mets, he'd be talked about up there with Lindor as being if he was having this. He's hitting 190 right now. I don't look at averages though on April 3rd in middle of April though. I mean, no, I don't either. I'm just saying if you're going to look at how good he's been, it's like, look, I think Alonso, I enjoyed some of his time with the Mets. I loved him when he hit that home run over against Devin Williams against the Brewers. I loved him in that moment. I do think Alonso is a little overrated. I really do. I think that people a lot of Met fans look through memories of Alonso through rose-colored glass. I mean, 2 years ago, the 2024 season, every Met fan, we were all done with Alonso. If he didn't hit that home run against the Brewers, there's a really good chance he doesn't re-sign with the Mets for another year. I really didn't shed any tears about losing Alonso. It was sentimental, but it was just from a baseball perspective, I thought it made perfect sense. I think the biggest issue I have is with Lindor. Lindor has been awful lately. It's not even just that he's not hitting. He's not hitting, but it's not even just that. It's also stupid mental errors. I mean, I don't know, like he didn't know how many outs there were. I don't know if you also saw, he got yesterday afternoon, he got thrown out. He was stealing. He was out by like a mile. It was like not even remotely close. It's like he forgot how to play. And this is supposed to be like the de facto team captain in a sense.
Well, the thing with terms of how slow he's been offensively is, do you think it has something to do with the injury that he had early on in spring and coming back from it? But does that injury though lead to the lapses that he had on the field? That you can't say. But I think you could say his offensive production, and there's also no coincidence that having one of the best on-base percentage guys in Juan Soto, who all he does is walk and get on base and stuff, and him not being there also is a bit of a factor. So
I think that's true.
The Mets, if you think about it, I know, we're going to try not to overreact, but the Mets are playing right now without a guy who has like a 400 on base percentage in Soto, and drove in over 100, hit 40 home runs and drove in 100 RBIs last year. A guy, Pete Alonso, who all he did with the Mets was play every single game, no matter what, in a sport that has a major durability issue. And a guy like Brandon Nimmo, who also walked and got on base a lot and played solid defense. Those are three hard guys to try and replace it. I don't think the Mets really went out there and really replaced. You're not going to replace Soto because he was on the team. I get that, but replacing a guy like Alonso and Nimmo, that's people think that's easy. Oh, let's get rid of him. It's easier said than done.
Yeah, and by the way, Nimmo is playing very well this year. Like I said, it's still early, but he's also hitting 367. He has 22 hits this year. We could have used it. Like if he were to produce this well with the Mets, we'd all be pretty happy.
By the way, I've been trying to look this up. Do you know how many players in Major League Baseball last year played all 160? Alonso was one of them, but how many of those guys played all 162 games?
I'm going to guess 12.
5.
Wow.
That's it. 5 guys played all 162 games, and Alonso was one of 5. Only 2 of them started all 162, but appeared in all 162 games.
Was Lindor one of them?
No, it was Alonso, Ellie De La Cruz, Matt Olson, Brent Rooker, and Kyle Schwarber. And by the way, Soto last year played in 160. So again, baseball, which has a major durability issue, that cannot go understated. How big Alonso was, not only as a guy, and also a guy that could hype up the team, that showed emotion. They don't have that without Alonso. That's why people were like when they got rid of him. And it wasn't like the Orioles blew them away with an offer. With somebody like Cohen, who prints money hand over fist, that could not have been a problem. Although I don't really put that on him. I put it more on Stearns than I do Cohen. But come on, he's your homegrown guy. Take care of your homegrown guy.
Look, Steve Cohen is responsible for. Look, I think Steve Cohen's responsible for a lot. I don't like this whole thing for some Met fans where everything that goes good is on Steve Cohen and everything that goes bad is on David Stearns. I think they're both responsible. Look, Steve Cohen's made some pretty bad moves during his time as the owner too, like spending a fortune on 40-year-old pitchers. There were some moves that he made that were not good also. So
fair, but
he's the owner. He is in charge of the GM in some ways.
But I will say one thing about this, just to wrap this up. I know they're going through a little bit right now, both teams. I'm not going to panic though. My first checking point with baseball is Memorial Day. If both of these teams are 10 games under 500 on Memorial Day, then maybe we can talk and be a bit concerned about it. But remember, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I think Met fans have more of a reason to panic than Yankee fans, though.
I agree 100%.
The Yankees were a playoff team last year. They're getting off to a slow start. You can make that argument. And also, they didn't get swept by the A's at home. That's not as bad. Met fans, we had an epic collapse last year. The season started this year. It looks like it's an extension of last year and nothing. We didn't even get a fresh start. So we have no reason to we have a reason to believe that things aren't getting better. The only thing we can hope for is that the Mets have a similar season trajectory that they had 2 years ago. That's the only thing.
Well, you got to get Lindor going. You got to get Soto back, and you got to do something else to try and replace Nimmo and Alonso. I mean,
Yeah.
when they got rid of both, it's one thing to lose one of them, but to lose both of them, especially when they're both homegrown guys.
Well, I mean, you're forgetting another big one, which is Diaz.
Oh, and of course Diaz, but I mean, you got to get to him first too. I mean,
But at least we lost Diaz to the Dodgers, and they're stealing everybody. So it's like, all right, we lost to the best.
Lockout. Enjoy this year, everybody. Yeah.
You know what? If there's any sport that I can live without, it's baseball. If we're going to have any major sport that's going to have a lockout, look, I'd much rather it be baseball than football. Like in July, I can go to the beach, Atlantic City. I can enjoy myself. I don't really need sports as much in July as I do in November, December.
Well, it's shaping up to be that way, so stay tuned. And by the way, also real quick, make sure to have your notifications set on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network, and follow us at MCGPETB, just so you have an idea of when the show will be coming out in the coming weeks. Because I know Nick D's and my schedules kind of don't mix and don't gel right now.
Look, we'll figure out a way.
We'll figure out something. So just stay tuned in that regard.
Yeah. Well, we don't have enough sponsorship to do this full time. So
yeah, well, some of us have to work, and in my case, I have 2 gigs, so I get it.
So do you want to talk about Rory McIlroy winning the Masters? I put this at the very end. I know it's an important sports topic. I know. I put it at the end because I don't know jack shit about golf. That's the reason why. So it's all I know is that this is his 5th major or 6th major.
It's the fact that he won back-to-back years at the Masters, and that is something we've very rarely seen, that somebody win back-to-back green jackets. And McIlroy, who normally has a very tough Saturday swoon, actually overcame that. I mean, it was moving day being Saturday. It's not like he was terrible. It's like he had a bunch of the other golfers make big strides in that round, but he came through Sunday and played outstanding to win his 2nd straight green jacket. So good for him. It's something we don't normally see. I mean, usually, we know Tiger's done it before, but it's not often you see somebody winning back-to-back years there at Augusta.
Yeah. That's all I get, because I don't know much. I don't like watching golf. I think it's very boring, mainly because I never played. I'm not made of money or time, so I just don't have the time.
I usually watch I'll watch the majors, and I'll watch some of the bigger events with it, especially come summertime. Like, I'll pay attention to it more because there's not much else on. If I'm not at a gig on a Sunday with my other job, then I will watch it a little bit more, some of the bigger events. But obviously, really the big golf story has been with Tiger, and we know what's happening with him. But this is a pretty special moment for Rory and golf to see him winning it back-to-back years.
So I guess we're not going to get to the AD story. Basically, AD, he was reflecting on the Luka trade. Basically they told his chef. His chef told him that he was traded to the Mavericks. Whatever, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. That's some way to find out, though.
It was a long time ago. It wasn't that long ago. It's one of those things where it's like you remember where you were when.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, I don't remember 9/11. My thing is, where were you for the Luka trade? Like,
oh wow, that's some way of and
but it's true.
By a chef. Your chef
really is the thing. You remember where you were when it happened. Yeah. And I was in
Connecticut. Who told you?
I was in Connecticut. That's where I was actually. Yeah. It's like when Kobe died. You remember where you were? It's the same thing.
Yeah, I remember hearing.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back next week on a different day.
Yeah, have your notifications set, and you'll see when we come back out.
Yeah. So see you guys then.
We'll see you.